Okay, so imagine this. You win an election, but then people are pressuring you to just toss out the results even though you won fair and square.
Oh, wow.
It sounds kind of wild, right? Well, that's what's happening right now in the world of election integrity.
Really?
It's a big deal because we're talking about the foundation of American democracy, and things are getting a little shaky.
It's interesting, this whole movement about protecting election integrity, but then they're also pushing to overturn election results that are legitimate.
Yeah, it's a weird
juxtaposition.
Yeah, paradox.
And it's happening right now with real consequences for people.
Right.
We're diving into this New York Times article, "The Army of Election Officials Ready to Reject the Vote," by Jim Rutenberg.
Okay.
It was published on October 25th, 2024, and updated just a couple days later.
Gotcha.
This article's crazy. It reads like a political thriller.
I think the article does a really good job of showing how it's not just about counting votes.
It's about the people who are actually doing the counting and the processes that they use.
Yeah.
And how easily those processes can be manipulated.
Yeah, and the story that really stood out to me was about Clara Andreola.
Oh.
She's a Republican commissioner in Washoe County, Nevada. And she wins her primary fair and square, but then she gets all this pressure to just refuse to certify her own victory.
Wow.
Like, what?
It's like they're trying to use her story as like a poster child for this movement.
Yeah.
You know, they're really focused on the certification part of elections.
Yeah.
Which is normally just like a routine step.
Right.
But they're trying to turn it into this point where they can overturn results that they just don't like.
So is certification just a formality, or do these officials actually have the power to say, nope, I'm not going to certify this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that's being debated a lot right now.
Yeah.
It's a legal gray area.
Okay.
Some people say the certification is just a procedural thing, you know, just a rubber stamp. But then other people say that it gives officials the ability to actually reject results.
Right.
Even if there's no hard evidence of fraud.
So Andreola is really caught in the middle of this.
Yeah, she is.
The article mentions a couple of guys like Robert Beatles. He's a cryptocurrency millionaire.
Yeah.
And Edward Solomon, who is presenting himself as some kind of math whiz.
Interesting.
And they're both pressuring her to block the certification, saying they have proof that the election was rigged.
And is that another tactic that they're using, like this statistical manipulation to kind of fit their narrative?
Yeah, basically like they're twisting the statistics to make it seem like there's widespread fraud, but really they're using these flawed analyses.
Exactly.
You know, based on cherry-picked data or misinterpretations of real statistical concepts.
Yeah, they're just trying to overwhelm people with all this technical jargon and confusing data.
Yeah.
But when you really look at it, they don't actually have a strong case.
It's like they're gaming the system.
Yeah, you got it.
And this pressure on Andreola isn't just an isolated thing.
Right.
This is part of a much bigger effort that's been going on across the country.
Especially since 2020.
Yeah, especially since the 2020 elections.
Yeah, they're trying to install people in positions of power.
Right.
Over elections that share their same views.
So it's not just about this one result. They're trying to control the whole process.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
From the inside out.
And one of the key figures in this whole movement is Cleta Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
And her organization, the Election Integrity Network.
Okay.
So what's her plan?
Well, their strategy has a few different parts.
Okay.
So first, they're trying to get their people elected or appointed to important positions in local election offices. Then they flood these offices with a ton of information requests just to overwhelm them and slow things down.
Okay.
And lastly, they're really pushing for hand counting of ballots.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Isn't hand counting actually less reliable than using machines?
You're right. It is. Hand counting is very prone to human error.
Right.
And it also takes way longer.
Right.
Which can lead to chaos and delays.
And you can manipulate it easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they're trying to sell it as this way to restore trust in the system.
Right.
Even though it actually makes things less secure.
So they're intentionally trying to create problems and then say, look, the system's broken.
That's a great way to put it.
And it's working.
It is.
The article talks about similar cases of officials refusing to certify results in Otero County, New Mexico, Surrey County, North Carolina, Luzerne County, Pennsylvania.
It's like it's spreading all over the place.
Yeah, it's not just a Nevada problem or a red state problem. It's a national threat.
Exactly.
And one of the places where this movement has really taken hold is Maricopa County, Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
It's like ground zero for this kind of election denialism.
All the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the crazy characters.
Like that Sharpie Gate thing.
Oh, yeah, where people thought that using a Sharpie on their ballot would invalidate their vote.
Like, that's ridiculous.
It sounds crazy, but it just shows how disinformation can really take hold.
Yeah.
They take something so small and twist it out of context.
Yeah.
And then it turns into this huge conspiracy theory.
That spreads like wildfire.
All over social media.
Like, how can a Sharpie become a weapon in this whole thing?
It's wild.
And then there was the Cyber Ninjas audit.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
That the Arizona Senate Republicans paid for.
They spent millions on this company that had no experience in election auditing.
Yeah.
And even though they didn't find any proof of widespread fraud,
right,
it just made people more distrustful.
It feels like they were trying to make a problem where there wasn't one.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't find anything concrete, just the fact that they did it at all gave those conspiracy theories some legitimacy.
Right. It's a classic example of how just questioning the election results can be enough to damage people's trust.
Even if there's no evidence.
Yeah. And that brings us to Kari Lake.
Okay.
A candidate for governor who really made election denialism her main platform.
She's like a poster child for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Her claims that the 2022 election was stolen, even though there's no evidence, have become a rallying cry for election deniers all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
She's very charismatic and good at connecting with people who are already feeling anxious.
And her words have real consequences.
They do.
The article mentions 2 Republican supervisors in Cochise County, Arizona, refused to certify the 2022 midterms.
Oh, wow.
Because they were worried about voting machines.
Interesting.
They could have faced legal action for that.
It just goes to show how far some officials are willing to go to challenge the system.
Yeah. Scary trend.
Yeah, it's eroding trust in our democracy.
Right.
And it could lead to some serious problems.
Yeah, it feels like we're on the slippery slope.
Yeah.
And things could get out of control if we don't figure out how to deal with this.
Absolutely.
And speaking of slippery slopes, let's talk about Georgia, where this whole fight over election integrity is getting even more intense.
Okay.
We're going to meet Fulton County Commissioner Bridget Thorne, a newcomer who's really suspicious of the 2020 election results.
Okay, so Bridget Thorne is a new player in this. What makes her story so important?
Well, she's not just questioning the results. She wants to change the rules of the game.
Really?
Yeah, she represents this new wave of election deniers that are going into the system and trying to manipulate it from the inside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It sounds like she could really change things.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear more about her tactics.
Yeah.
And how she's impacting what's happening in Georgia.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. Thorne is definitely someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
She's pushing for changes that could give officials even more power.
Really?
To reject election results.
Even if there's no evidence of any wrongdoing?
Yeah. It's like they would be able to overturn elections based on just a suspicion or a gut feeling.
So is she getting anywhere with this?
Yeah. Unfortunately, she's found some allies.
Oh, no.
Like Janice Johnston, a new appointee to the State Board of Elections.
Okay.
And Julie Adams, who recently joined the Fulton Election Board.
So there's 3 of them.
Yeah, they're forming this powerful little group.
That felt good.
It's definitely causing some concern.
Yeah.
Groups like Protect Democracy and States United Democracy Center are warning that these changes could have serious consequences for democracy.
What are they worried about specifically?
Well, one of Thorne's big wins was getting this new rule passed that requires all Georgia elections certifiers to do these big investigations before they can certify the results.
But isn't that part of their job anyway?
Yeah, but this new rule gives them a lot more wiggle room to delay or even just reject results.
Based on their own investigations.
Yeah, it's like giving them permission to just go on these fishing expeditions.
Looking for anything they can use to overturn an election they don't like.
Exactly, and it gets worse. Thorne and Julie Adams teamed up to file a lawsuit.
Oh, no.
That would give them wider access to voter data.
So they can do their own audits before certification?
Exactly. But critics think it's just a way to intimidate voters.
And maybe challenge whether they're even allowed to vote?
It's starting to feel like Big Brother.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to create this whole atmosphere of suspicion and fear around voting.
And it's making people nervous, both voters and the people who work on elections.
So is anyone fighting back against this?
Yes, thankfully there's been some pushback.
Okay, good.
A state judge, Robert C. I. McBurney,
heard
arguments in both cases.
So both the new rule and the lawsuit.
Yeah. And he made it very clear that certification is not optional.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
And it has to happen by a certain deadline.
Yeah. He basically shut down their attempts to create these loopholes to reject election results.
That's a win for democracy.
It is a big win.
It sounds like this judge is standing up for the law and what the voters decided.
It definitely reaffirms that there's a legal framework for elections.
Okay.
And it sends a message that trying to mess with that process won't be tolerated.
But this isn't over, is it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
This election integrity movement is not going away.
They're relentless.
They are.
Yeah.
They're always looking for new ways to challenge the system, to make people doubt it, and to take control.
It's a battle that's going to keep going even after the 2024 election.
Definitely.
Let's go back to Washoe County, Nevada, where Clara Andreola's story is still unfolding.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, she first refused to certify her own primary win, but then she changed her mind.
Right. It just goes to show how much pressure these officials are under.
Yeah.
She realized that not certifying could mean serious legal trouble for her.
Okay.
So she asked them to reconsider.
But the damage was already done.
Yeah, even though she backed down.
It still makes people think the system is rigged.
Exactly. And it's not just about one election.
Right.
All these legal fights,
Mm-hmm.
the pressure from election deniers, all the threats.
It's got to be hard on election workers.
It is. The article talks about how it's leading to stress burnout and people quitting.
Yeah, it's getting harder to find and keep qualified people to run our elections.
It's a real problem.
It's like they're trying to sabotage the whole system by getting rid of the people who are trying to make it work.
And the closer we get to the 2024 election.
Because the higher the stakes get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In Washoe County, the upcoming election could completely change who controls the commission.
Meaning who gets to certify future elections.
Yeah. And it could end up being the people who have been questioning the integrity of the process all along.
So it's a vicious cycle.
It is. The more they attack the system, the less people trust it, and the easier it becomes for them to take over.
And maybe overturn results they don't like.
It's a dangerous pattern,
Yeah.
and it's happening all over the country.
Yeah.
We're seeing more political violence threats against election workers, and just this overall feeling of fear and intimidation.
It feels like our democracy is barely holding on.
Yeah, it's going to take all of us working together to save it.
But what can we actually do? It feels so big and overwhelming.
It can, but there are things we can do, and we'll talk about those right after this. So we were talking about this big challenge to our democracy.
Yeah, what can we actually do about it? It feels kind of huge.
It can feel pretty overwhelming, I get it. But the good news is, there are things we can do. And it all starts with knowing what's going on. We can't just ignore it and hope it goes away.
So step one is getting informed. But how do we even know what's real anymore? There's so much information out there.
That's a great point. We're constantly bombarded with information from all sides, especially on social media.
Yeah.
It's tough to navigate.
So we have to be our own fact checkers.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Don't believe everything you see or hear, especially if it sounds too good to be true or just designed to get you riled up.
Okay.
Check the sources. Look for evidence-based reporting from reliable news organizations. You know, the ones that have a reputation for being accurate.
Makes sense.
And be wary of anything that's trying to play on your fears or anger. Those are often red flags.
Yeah, it's like if it sounds too crazy, it probably is.
Exactly. And it's not just about debunking the bad information. We also need to promote the good stuff.
Okay.
Share articles from trusted sources. Support organizations that are working to protect our elections and educate voters.
So fight the lies and boost the truth.
You got it. And then there's the whole thing about getting involved locally. We can't just sit back and expect others to fix this.
So what can we do? Like, specifically?
Lots of options. Volunteer as a poll worker. Be one of the people helping to run the elections.
Okay.
Observe election processes. If you see something that doesn't seem right, report it.
I have never actually thought about being a poll worker. What does that even involve?
It's a big responsibility, but really important. You're basically helping to make sure everything runs smoothly and that everyone's vote is counted correctly.
Okay.
I might be checking people in, handing out ballots, or helping with the counting.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It can be, but it's also really rewarding. You're playing a vital role in our democracy.
And you get to see firsthand how it all works.
Exactly. Plus, you're directly contributing to the integrity of our elections, which is crucial right now.
So being a poll worker is one way to get involved. What else can we do?
Contact your elected officials. Let them know that election integrity is a top priority for you. Tell them you want them to support policies that protect election workers, improve security, and make things more transparent.
So basically make our voices heard and hold them accountable.
Exactly. And of course, the most basic thing we could do is vote.
Right.
Our democracy depends on people participating. So if we want to protect our elections, We have to show up and make our voices heard at the ballot box.
So even with all this stuff going on, our votes still matter?
They matter more than ever. This is not the time to be passive. Every vote makes a difference.
Yeah.
Every voice counts.
It's easy to get cynical with all the craziness and misinformation out there, but we can't give up.
I agree. We have to keep fighting for our democracy.
The article focuses on officials potentially rejecting election results, but what happens when regular people stop believing in the system and don't accept the results?
That's a great point. It kind of flips the whole problem on its head.
Yeah.
It shows how fragile democracy really is. Even if the system itself is working, if people don't trust it, it's not going to work.
So it's not just about protecting the elections themselves. It's about restoring people's faith in the whole system.
Exactly. And that's something that requires all of us to step up and do our part.
Well, this has been eye-opening. We've uncovered some serious threats to our elections, but also some ways to fight back and protect our democracy.
It's definitely been a fascinating conversation.
The battle for election integrity isn't over, but we can make a difference.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of election integrity.
I hope this has helped you become more informed and more engaged.
Remember, your voice matters, your vote matters, and your actions can make a difference.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
This is The Deep Dive signing off.